The body beneath the stones. 10 years ago, in my mid-30s, I worked as a security guard at St. Mary's Cemetery, a sprawling, crumbling graveyard on the outskirts of Detroit's roughest neighborhood. The place was a magnet for trouble. Vagrants spray-painting headstones, kids daring each other to steal mementos, and worse, whispers of grave robbers hunting for forgotten relics. My job was to keep watch, riding a rickety golf cart through the fog-choked rows from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Those last 2 hours alone under the moon's cold glare always set my nerves on edge. One October evening, as the air grew sharp with autumn's bite, my supervisor, Tom, pulled me aside before his shift ended. "Keep your eyes peeled, Jack," he muttered, his breath fogging in the dusk. "Some weirdos have been scoping the place. Seen him lurking across the street at odd hours, just watching. Been happening for days." I nodded, my stomach twisting. I'd heard stories about this cemetery, unmarked graves, strange lights flickering where no lamp stood, but I brushed it off as old superstition. Still, Tom's warning clung to me like damp cloth. By 6 p.m., the other workers had clocked out, leaving me alone with the silence. I liked this part of the shift best. No need to pretend I was patrolling every inch. The cemetery stretched out like a sea of stone, broken only by gnarled oaks and the occasional crow's caw. I cruised the paths, picking up stray soda cans and wilted flowers left by mourners. At 8:30, I ushered out the last visitors, a grieving widow and her son, and headed to lock the wrought iron gate. As I wound the heavy chain around the bars, a prickle ran up my neck. Across the street, half hidden in the shadows of a boarded-up storefront, 3 figures stood motionless, their faces obscured by hoods. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. I snapped the lock shut, my hands unsteady, and climbed back into the cart. I parked behind a crumbling mausoleum, where I could watch them without being seen. The trio lingered, their silhouettes sharp against the street lamp's sickly glow. After a few minutes, they turned and vanished down an alley. I exhaled, telling myself it was nothing, just kids looking for a thrill. I circled the perimeter, checking the fences for gaps, but found no trace of them. Around 9 p.m., as I idled near the gate, a sound shattered the quiet. A metallic clang, sharp and echoing like a crowbar striking stone. My head snapped toward the noise, but the darkness swallowed any clue. The cemetery was a maze of shadows, the headstones looming like silent sentinels. I gunned the cart, its whine cutting through the night, and steered toward the sound's source, deep in the older section where the graves were sunken and overgrown. Then I saw them. 2 figures, crouched in a clearing far from any path. Not 3, as I'd seen before, but 2. Their outlines wavered in the dim light, hunched over the earth. I slowed the cart, my pulse hammering, and stepped out, flashlight trembling in my grip. "Place is closed," I shouted, my voice cracking. "You need to leave, now." They turned slowly, their faces hidden in shadow. But they didn't run. I took a step closer, anger edging out fear. "I'm not asking again. Do I need to call the cops?" That's when my beam caught the glint of metal. A shovel, clutched in one's hand. My eyes dropped to the ground. They'd been digging, not at a grave, but in a barren patch of dirt, the soil freshly turned. Before I could speak, a guttural yell erupted behind me, chilling my blood. The 2 figures bolted, their footsteps pounding into the dark. I spun around, catching a glimpse of a third man, tall, lanky, his eyes glinting with malice, before he darted in the opposite direction. I scrambled back to the cart, my breath ragged, and floored it after the lone figure. But the cart lurched, wobbling violently. I slammed to a stop and jumped out. Both left tires were slashed, the rubber sagging into the dirt. Panic clawed at me. I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 as I sprinted toward the caretaker's shed, the only building with a lock. Every rustle, every snap of a twig felt like them closing in. I barricaded myself inside, the flimsy door my only shield, and waited, heart pounding, for the police. When the cops arrived, the intruders were gone, but their work remained. The half-dug hole gaped like a wound in the earth. Near the fence, tucked behind a rotted stump, we found something worse. A black body bag, its zipper rusted and stained. Inside was a man, his face gray and lifeless, bullet holes riddling his chest. Days later, the police pieced it together. He was a low-level gang member killed in a turf war. The trio, they figured, planned to bury him here, thinking a fresh grave in a forgotten cemetery would go unnoticed.
They never caught those men. Their faces haunt me still, those shadowed hoods, the shovel's gleam, the third man's feral scream. I left St. Mary's soon after. Some nights, I still hear that clang in my dreams. And I wonder if they're out there digging again, waiting for another chance to hide their sins in the earth. The Watcher at Willow Creek. I've worked the night shift at Willow Creek Cemetery, a small plot on the edge of Salem, Oregon, for 3 years now. It's just a few acres, dotted with mossy headstones and crooked pines, the kind of place where nothing ever happens. My job is simple. Sit in a cramped office, watch the 3 grainy security cameras, and call the cops if anything goes wrong. My boss, Ellen, drilled it into me from day one. You're not a hero, Mark. You're a pair of eyes. For 2 years, I believed her. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a rainy Monday in November, the kind where the wind howls like a mourner. I pulled into the lot at dusk, relieving the day guard, Pete, who looked eager to escape the storm. I hadn't slept well. Nightmares of sinking into mud kept waking me, so I brought a thermos of black coffee to stay sharp. For the first hour, I sat at the desk, the monitors flickering with static, showing nothing but wet grass and tilting stones. I sipped my coffee, scrolled my phone, and tried to ignore the boredom gnawing at me. By 1 a.m., the coffee had failed. My eyelids drooped, the chair creaking as I fought sleep. The rain's drone was hypnotic, lulling me until my head nodded forward. I don't know how long I was out. Maybe 20 minutes. But a sound jolted me awake. A slow, grating creak, like rusted hinges protesting. I spun in my chair, heart lurching. The office door, which I'd locked myself, hung ajar, swaying in the wind. Rain spattered the floor, pooling under the threshold. I froze, breath caught, straining to hear anything over the storm. I stood, legs unsteady, and crept to the door. Peering outside, I saw only darkness. No one, no movement, just the endless patter of rain. I slammed the door shut, twisting the deadbolt with shaking hands. Had I forgotten to lock it? I didn't think so, but doubt gnawed at me. My skin prickled as I sat back down, pulling up the camera footage. The exterior camera showed nothing. No one approaching, no one leaving, just the door inexplicably open. Wide awake now, I glued my eyes to the monitors, jumping at every flicker. 10 minutes later, motion caught my eye on the far camera, trained on the cemetery's oldest section. A figure moved through the frame, slow and deliberate, weaving between headstones. The image was blurry, the rain smearing the lens, but it was a man. Tall, thin, his coat flapping like a shroud. He paused, head tilted, as if listening, then stood still, facing the camera from a distance. I grabbed the phone, dialing 911, my voice a whisper as I reported a trespasser. The operator's calm question steadied me until, without warning, the man broke into a sprint, vanishing off screen. My stomach dropped. I scanned the other cameras, heart racing. Seconds later, he reappeared on the second camera, tearing through the rows, his movements jerky, unnatural. Then, on the office camera, he was there, right outside my door. He stopped, rain dripping from his hood, and turned his head, scanning the building. His gaze locked onto the camera, and I swear his eyes burned through the screen, pale, unblinking, like they saw me sitting there. My breath hitched. "Hello?" His voice came through the door, low and cracked like he hadn't spoken in years. "Can you help me?" The words were wrong, hollow, less a plea than a taunt. I clutched the phone, mute, as he stepped closer, his shadow filling the frame. Then he moved, circling the building. The cameras didn't cover the back wall, but I heard him. Footsteps squelching in the mud, slow and deliberate, scraping against the brick. I whispered to the operator, begging her to hurry. The footsteps paused, and for a moment silence pressed down, heavier than the rain. Then they sped up, fading fast, as if he'd run into the night. I sat there, paralyzed, until red and blue lights flashed outside. The police found footprints, deep, uneven, circling the office and trailing off into the woods beyond the cemetery. They followed them until the mud swallowed the tracks, leading nowhere. The cops called it a prank, maybe a drifter, but I saw his face on that screen. Those eyes weren't human. They were hungry. Still work at Willow Creek, though I dread every shift. The doors never opened again, and no one's crossed the camera since. But some nights, when the rain falls hard, I hear it. A creak, a step, a voice just beyond the wall, asking for help I'll never give. The man in the graveyard. Back in high school, my friends and I were reckless, chasing thrills in places we had no business being. Abandoned mills, empty houses, anywhere the world felt forgotten. But the dumbest thing we ever did was sneaking into Oakwood Cemetery one freezing February night in Rochester, New York. Most of our stunts ended with nothing but laughs and a few photos. This one ended with nightmares I still can't shake. It was a Friday, sophomore year, and we'd been hanging out at a diner, tossing around ideas to kill the boredom. By midnight, two of our group, Sarah and Mike, called it quits, leaving just me and my best friend Ethan. Neither of us wanted to go home to empty houses and dull screens. Ethan grinned, his eyes glinting with mischief. "You know Oakwood by my place? Bet it's creepy as hell at night. Want to check it out?" I laughed, nerves tingling. A cemetery sounded spooky, sure, but harmless. Just stones and stories. I agreed, and we piled into Ethan's beat-up Civic. We parked a block away, the neighborhood quiet except for the wind rattling bare branches. Oakwood's gate loomed ahead, a Gothic arch of iron flanked by stone angels, their faces worn to blank stares. The perimeter was just a low wooden fence, splintered and sagging. We hopped it easily, landing in the snow-dusted grass with a crunch. The air felt heavier inside, like the dark was watching. A few lamps glowed dimly, their light swallowed by the rows of headstones stretching into the distance. We giggled, our breath puffing in clouds, but the thrill was already souring. Our plan, if you could call it that, was to cross the cemetery and back without freaking out. We trudged forward, passing graves etched with names long forgotten, the silence pressing harder with every step. About a dozen stones in, Ethan stopped dead, grabbing my arm. "Hold up," he whispered, pointing ahead. In the gloom, maybe 50 yards off, a figure stood beside a tall obelisk, motionless. The lamp behind it cast a faint halo, but its face was lost in shadow. We froze, hearts pounding. Was it a groundskeeper? A cop? The figure shifted, stepping toward us, slow and deliberate, like it knew we were there. Ethan and I exchanged a glance, both thinking the same thing. We were caught, and we were screwed.
The man stopped, still too far to see clearly, his voice cutting through the cold. "What are you kids doing here?" It was rough, gravelly, not angry, but off, like he was reading a script. Ethan stammered. Just looking around, sir." The man tilted his head, silent for too long. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. "Come with me. I'll show you out." He turned, beckoning us to follow, his coat swaying as he walked deeper into the cemetery away from the gate. My gut screamed to run, but Ethan hesitated, and I didn't want to leave him. We trailed behind, keeping our distance, the snow muffling our steps. As he passed under a lamp, his silhouette sharpened, and my blood ran cold. His clothes were tattered, jacket torn at the seams, pants caked with dirt, shoes mismatched and fraying. No groundskeeper dressed like that. He looked like he crawled out of the ground. Ethan's eyes met mine, wide with panic. The man sensed our pause and turned, his face catching the light. His skin was sallow, stretched tight over sharp bones, and his eyes... God, his eyes were wild, glinting like a predator's in the dark. "Come here," he growled, stepping toward us, his hand twitching toward his coat pocket. Ethan bolted, and I was right behind him, legs pumping as the man's footsteps thundered after us. The air burned my lungs, the graves blurring past. I felt him behind me, too close, his breath ragged and guttural like an animal's snarl. We reached the fence and scrambled over, wood splintering under our weight. I hit the ground hard, rolling, and looked back. He was there on the other side, slamming his fist against the fence, his face twisted in rage or something worse. We didn't stop running until we reached Ethan's car, peeling out without looking back. We told our friends the next day, swearing them to secrecy. We'd broken the law and we knew it. Ethan thinks he was a drifter, maybe planning to rob us. I'm not so sure. Those eyes didn't want money. They wanted something else. Something I still feel watching me when I pass Oakwood's gates, daring me to step inside again.